we have to create the right vibe, the energy, and everybody at the organization has to feel so privileged to be here. It's no other way.
Thanks for listening to the Purely Arsenal podcast. Please follow us on Twitter at PurelyArsenalFP for all the latest Arsenal podcasts.
Welcome to another episode of a Purely Arsenal podcast. I'm joined from space for Neil Shah with me. How you doing, Neil?
Well, it's the Earth, you see, and obviously we're going to conquer the Earth because we're going to win the quad and then we're going to do unbeaten quad and so on and so forth. So there you go.
Oh, the international break hasn't dampened your spirits at all, has it? Perfect. Yeah, I like that. Positivity. We're on YouTube, by the way. This is a recorded one, not live on YouTube. So watch us and subscribe to us, Purely Arsenal on YouTube. James Johnstone with me. How you doing, James?
Hello, yes, no, I'm very good. You got Neil over there in space, and you got Michael there in the glasses and the track jacket. Looks like the man whose book I think I got arriving tomorrow morning. I feel underdressed. I'm just I think it's a knockoff Abercrombie, but still, it's an Abercrombie nonetheless. But
nothing wrong with Abercrombie, mate. Nothing wrong with that. I used to classic that when I was young.
I think I got this out of the van. But yeah, right, that's about.
Classic Arsenal zip up. Michael Harris, how you doing, Mike?
I'm good, Jack. Just ready to party.
Ready to party. We saw him arrive in a shirt. The poxy international break is just about beyond us. Looked like Ghana didn't have an extra game in the midweek in this poxy break. We'll get to that in a little bit. But the last podcast we did, obviously this is a preview podcast for the big game at the weekend against Manchester City away. It's definitely a big way to return. But the last podcast, obviously, we're so excited from Partey joining at the last second. I mean, we really ran the transfer deadline day full of surprises. Love seeing the journalists backtrack the day after and the day after saying, well, yeah, Kroenke must have invested because it wasn't on our... I've got some questions, a bit like Gareth Keenan in the office. But it's the same. What we've noticed in the last two windows is no matter how reliable the journalists, they really don't know what's going on at Arsenal ever since KSE has taken over 100%. I don't think. There's not really an understanding of what we can and what we can't spend. But I do want to talk a little bit about the belief and the understanding that Kroenke just must have put their money in a little bit. And let's talk to you about that, Neil. Well, first of all, your overall feeling on a transfer window, but also Kroenke's get a pretty hard run of it from the Arsenal fans, I think rightly to a certain degree. Have you changed your mind a little bit on them when you've seen the investment from the club in the likes of Pepe and Partey in what you could say was pretty challenging times for the club in terms of where we finished and also with the pandemic and things like that?
No, not really. I think we would have suffered badly if we hadn't invested in some kind of top class players or expensive players. I think there would have been such a revolt. I know fans can't not go to the stadium anymore because they're not going to the stadium anyway. I get that, but I think there would have been some real backlash. I think, if anything, they probably would have had their hand forced to make these kind of investments to, I guess, satisfy the fan base, if you like. I don't think there would have been any kind of... I don't think it's their influence that has given them the opportunity to here we go, there's 70-odd million for Pepe, there's 50 million for Partey. And I mean, if that was the case, Jack, if it was a case of them just handing money out, I don't think we would have dithered and taken so long in the transfer market in the first place. Partey would have been probably a done deal very quickly. We probably would have got Eeyore as well. So I just think they were forced into making some kind of decision just to keep everyone happy. But also on top of that, I think it's Arteta's influence as well. There may have been something in his contract when he joined saying that if I don't get at least something, then I'm not going to join. I'm not going to sign any contracts, and I'm not going to have a managed team. I've got to have some assurances that, I will get some of the players, if not all, the players that I need to be able to see my vision through, or at least give it a go. So, no, my opinion on them hasn't changed. I think when Josh came out, it kind of took a bit of the sting out of the senior Kroenke's stance, kind of sting away from his tail a little bit. and it kind of softened the relationship between the fans and the board. But I think that was just a massive PR thing for me. I'm still not convinced, Jack. I know people don't share my opinion. That's fine, but I worry about the fact that he controls 97% of the club. But that really does worry me. We've got his track record of how he runs his businesses in abroad in America, and I just feel that Arsenal's just another one of those businesses which he's going to just keep there and thereabouts, but not really want to accelerate it to the real success of the powerhouses of the Real Madrids, the Barcelonas, and even the Man Cities and Liverpools, if you like. Unless Arteta is going to invoke some kind of change. So I'm not sure.
No, I think it's fair. My issue was never spending, by the way. My issue was who he employed underneath him if he was going to take such a passive position and such a, the change in the board members and the staff members from Gazidis to Sven to the adjustment from Wenger that I didn't feel was very well done, and the type of coach that was brought in. It was the people that he employed, Raul, to do the job. That was always my concern, and much like Liverpool, who got massively, abused FSG for years until they basically land a gem in Jurgen Klopp. What I'm hoping is that, perhaps now we've finally got the right people in place to basically take away from maybe the incompetence of the hierarchy above them. And I mean, I heard Edu speak. Every time I hear Edu speak, I'm quite impressed with him. Obviously, it was all on him really for this transfer window. And James, do you think it's fair to say that he's answered some questions of him, because he's never really done this role from what I've read in terms of the technical director? His role was a little bit different with the Brazilian team and with Corinthians. But he's done, I mean, time will tell, of course, but I think he's done a pretty good job. The only argument there, James, would probably be the sales at that point.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think we sold as many as we should have. There was definitely a few more that we should have got out if we could. But then again, it wasn't all necessarily Arsenal's. Arsenal were willing to sell these players, but it was a lot of the other sides, either not offering enough or just dilly-dallying, like Neil said, Arsenal dilly-dallied but got it done over in the end. And I think that was just because we were probably looking at it going, okay, is there a different option for that sort of player that we want? And maybe we, exhausted all those options, and it was just like, look, we're going to have to pay, if we don't have another option, we'll pay that clause. Because to me, I always knew that we were going to, I said from the start that we were going to sign Thomas Partey, because I just felt we're always going to pay that clause, because it's there, and it's, in the grand scheme of things, for a player of that magnitude with, the statistics behind him, plus from the performances that we've seen, I think that price of him is relatively cheap. And then you also factor in, if you want to talk about the window overall, so far on that Gabriel deal, we've only paid a 5 million instalment, which apparently was at the start anyway. So that's and for the price that he's at, and you look at all the other clubs that are around us that are struggling for centre halves. I mean, we spoke before the pod about England today and Maguire. Man United would die for Gabriel at the moment. They would love someone of that magnitude in their defence. But if you look at it as well as Edu, I think Edu's done relatively well with it. But I also agree with what Neil said, and there is some kind of, and I know Neil's got space behind him, but there is some kind of gravitational pull from Mikel Arteta to these players. Because if you look at it, when he come in at that time, if we all said, right, he can get us somewhat not relegated, you were desperate to get 40 points. I remember back in those days. And then, we were looking at about, okay, if he gets us through Sheffield United, we're going to get one of the big teams in a semi-final. If we can go there and not be embarrassed, that would be a great season for us. And then hopefully, if pull something off in the league. But he doubled down on that, and we beat some of the big teams, and we won 2 trophies in that time. And players aren't thick. There's all this stigma from years and years back that these footballers are thick. They're not as thick as people make them out to be. And Thomas Partey probably looked at that and went, that project, that manager, and all the rest of them players are going that way. And I want to jump in on that. And I don't know if you saw the video today of where he stood in front of the screen and watched all the videos of all the Arsenal fans that have made tributes and little dances. And he was just like, yeah, I'll have some of this. Like, he looks like the most happiest person in the world. He looks like the happiest player I've seen at Arsenal since Podolski, Abue and Mertesacker. He just looks like, I want to get that shirt on Saturday night and I just want to play. So, but other than that, I also think as well, it's not just the players that we actually signed that are new. Since he's been here, Mikel Arteta and somewhat Edu and whoever else have convinced Saka, have convinced Martinelli, and then the biggest one of them all was to get Aubameyang to sign that contract. So I'm like, it's not just the ones that we've added in, it's the ones that we've kept. And overall, I think it's, if I was to score the window, I would say possibly 6.5, 7 out of 10, because we should have got rid of a few more than what we did. But on the grand scheme of things, I can't be that upset.
If it was just incomings, you'd go higher, of course, but obviously the sales. But again, like you said, lots of teams, big teams, the likes of Chelsea and Liverpool, who sell well notoriously. I know they sold Bruce to Liverpool, but basically they struggled to offload a lot of the players like Divock Origi and Shaqiri and guys they would have wanted to offload in this window for money, right? So if they're struggling, I think it might be a hard window for us to truly judge whether we've been able to move beyond ourselves. And it's not really on Edu with the contract issues that exist amongst a lot of these players that are overpaid and, you know, overrated now and aging. It just becomes really difficult. But I think you make some good points there. Mike, just to touch, it was amazing to hear his dad's interview as well. And we said, didn't we, about a week leading into the end of the window, it's just really odd that I think Mike said it's really odd that no one else has come in for Partey, because he just, how can you not? I mean, he just ticks all the boxes for so many teams. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, and they'll probably never say it, but it felt like there was the agreement was already there in place. And that is quite incredible. And Partey talked about the 2014. We can't forget Wenger's link here with these players either. And that pull for Arsenal. You talk about French contingent and we heard some stuff come out about Ale. The pull for Arsenal is still really, really huge, despite the fact we've had some unsuccessful seasons, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in some of the interviews with Partey, I think there's a really good behind-the-scenes one where he mentions that some of the conversations he's had with Edu and Arteta, you know, and they were talking about the projects, and he basically said, yes, I want to be part of this. And then he mentioned, you know, touching on what James said about the FA Cup, when he said, when he saw that, he saw how excited the players were when they won the final, and you know, you could see that, you know, there was something special here as well. And it's amazing, really, you know, the structure. We're worried about having football people in the important positions in the club, and it's funny, you've got Per Mertesacker, who's obviously overseeing the youth. You've got Steve Bold, who's back there dealing with probably the side that he's more happy with. He wasn't happy necessarily being Wenger's number 2 because he didn't have that much of an input. He was much more successful dealing with the under-18s, bringing players like Jack Wilshere through. And then you've obviously got Edu and you've got Arteta, and they're all Wenger players. And you know, quite timely, Arsenal's obviously books come out, and he's talked a lot about the values of the club and the class and everything. And obviously, those 4 under him would know what it really means to be Arsenal and the traditions and the honour it is to play for this club. And they've obviously sold that to not just Partey and the players that we've re-signed, but all the youngsters coming through. So it really bodes really, really well that we've got these 4 guys sort of, you know, getting in touch with each other day in, day out, and getting the right message across, and going in the right direction. And I was watching the video of Partey's interview today, and you know, the missus, obviously, you know she's a gooner and stuff, and she was watching it and saying, "Oh, is he a good player?" I was like, "You wait to see what he's like," you know. And I said, you know, I was trying to describe him. I just said he can do a bit of everything, and you know, you'll see. And she goes, "Oh, it's a shame we can't see him live if he's that good, but you know, like in the stadium." But But I just said to her, he's a massive signing. It's absolutely massive signing. And going back to the beginning, the reason why no one else has been involved or sniffed around, well, there were a couple of smaller clubs, apparently Chelsea. They were sniffing around, but it's because we had that chat with him, months ago, and said, look, this is a project, and he was absolutely sold on it. And he said in the interview, when his agent told him that the deal was going to happen the night before, he couldn't sleep. He could not sleep. So that says it all. And if this guy sees the videos, he's talked about the messages that he's received from the fans, you can see he's really humble, and it really touches him. And I think this guy is going to leave it on the pitch every single game he plays. He's going to be an absolute legend, I think. And that's before he's kicked the ball. But I think he's going to be the way we've taken Tierney to our hearts in terms of the effort he gives every game. I think we're going to be the same with Thomas Partey. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that, and we're going to get to the lineup on Saturday and whether you think he should be put in. And we're known notoriously for easing in players at times, but we didn't really do it with Patrick Vieira all the way back. I think he came straight on against Sheffield Wednesday and never looked back really. So when you're good enough, sometimes you just need to throw him in, and it does strike you as a player that we've really needed, especially in that area of the pitch. And if we really need him, are we just going to throw him in?
To quote David Brent, a good idea is a good idea forever.
Yeah, very good. That's the hotel one, I remember. That's the CPR training or whatever you call it. That's that one. Yeah, I remember the episodes. Neil, Mike touched on it there. Kieran Tierney, and how we've taken to him as well. He's been forced into isolation for 14 days because of a close contact with the international. So, I don't want to talk. I'm trying to make sure I don't talk as much, but I don't want to answer the question for you. But what's your thoughts, first of all, on internationals occurring? But also, I think it could just really blow up in football's face. And if we're sitting here in December or January, we know football, I'm going to blame internationals for it. But also, they've not even gone back. They've gone beyond back to normal. More games than ever in a 2-week period. The week before the season started, they went off to international break like nothing was going on. Let's go ahead and do it. But also, Neil, I think it's the inconsistency. The pandemic and COVID, I think we should take it seriously. I think they got football personally spot on when we returned for the end of last season. And I think it should have continued like that, meaning no internationals, meaning neutral venues for European games and less games to travel for, because they're just doing one-off knockout stages and all that. But there's just too many inconsistencies with this Kieran Tierney one, Neil. When you look at what's happened with the likes of the Liverpool players, the West Ham players, the Ronaldos, it's frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah, hugely. He's such a big player for us. I've never liked the timing of internationals in the normal sense. We'd start a season off and then within 2 or 3 weeks, bang, international. And some teams have barely started getting their players back into the normal rhythm of things, getting their fitness. And then there's some of them, and especially in our squad, we've got so many from different countries all shooting off to international duty. It's such a kind of a situation where they could find themselves injured or whatnot. So in the normal sense, I didn't like it. The timing of it, I found some of them nonsensical anyway. And this has been absolutely ridiculous. I just can't. I've got no words. That's why I'm not even bothered to look at any of the results. I'm not taking any interest because I'm just so livid because we could lose key players at the very start of a season where it's so crucial for us. And for other teams, not just Arsenal. And then you talked about inconsistencies, absolutely spot on. He's in close contact and he's in isolation. Then you've got other players who the complete opposite is being applied to. It's very much like the refereeing decisions, very much like VAR, pure inconsistencies all throughout the board. And it just is so frustrating and annoying. And he even came out and said, didn't he, that this is just really so. It's dampened his spirits. It's very frustrating for him to go into isolation for 2 weeks, and it's just not fair. When other players have been in close contact, you've got Ronaldo, having a party with the whole team. Where's the restrictions there? Where they've been applied? It's unbelievable, And I think I agree with what you said. I think when They returned from COVID. It was very well done, very well applied. What was wrong with just continuing that for a few months at least? The internationals could have waited. Was there such a big drama to get them underway so soon? And now look what's happening in England. You know, we're suffering on the verge of more lockdowns, and there is a very good chance it's all going to come to a grinding halt again. I just don't understand it. I'm frustrated is the word. I don't know what else to say, to be honest. It's a joke.
Yeah, and I know what the argument will be, and I tweeted something and got a lot of sort of backlash a little bit from it. Is going to be, well, it's the Scottish FA's decision, and that's their protocol, and the Portuguese FA, for example, for Ronaldo is, but there has to be consistency. If it's the same sport and they're returning to their home leagues, there has to be consistency across the board. And to be honest, knowing COVID quite personally in terms of like sort of dealing with it over here, certainly what my wife does, it doesn't actually make any sense to claim that there was close contact with Tierney, who was with the team for about a day. I know maybe he was in the same room playing a computer game or something, but keeping his distance, when 3 West Ham players, for example, who might all be in the same bubble, all test positive, including the manager, and they're playing a game on the same day as all those positive tests come out. So I don't mind that West Ham case if you're going to go with that. But then there has to be consistency across the board. And then Ronaldo's been with his team for a whole week, hugging, kissing, whatever, sitting on their laps. And suddenly he's the only one that needs to isolate. No one else around him needs to isolate.
The other thing as well, Jack, is, sorry to interrupt, you keep going on about consistency. What I read earlier, every other Portuguese player has tested negative, so that's why they're okay. And I'm like, well, hang on a sec. Kieran Tierney had 2 negative tests while still in that Scotland bubble, and he's tested negative on every single test that he's had since he's come back, yet he's still not allowed to play. So I'm not saying this is a bias against Arsenal. I'm not one of these, there's an agenda against us. But to me, like you just said there, how does this all make sense?
No. And the problem now,
it just seems to be that it's decided by just that football organisation, that individual government. And I know that Scotland, a lot like Northern Ireland, I think today have gone there completely. I think Northern Ireland have declared the next lockdown for them. So every other country's doing it differently. And if that's the case, then okay, I can somewhat see that and respect that. But if it's from a purely football association decision, well, that's bollocks, because I'm sorry, he plays football in England for his club. And I'm like, if he's tested negative forms since being in contact with that player, he's not playing in Scotland. As far as I know, the City of Manchester Stadium ain't in Glasgow. It ain't Hampden Park. What do you know what I mean? I don't.
Now they put us in a really. They put us in a really difficult position now, because let's say, for example, we clear it, just for example, and then we go and get a positive test within the team within the next week. It looks terrible in the club, and we're going to know this because it shouldn't do. But no, he's isolating. As far as I'm aware, he's isolating.
Course, yeah,
and I have to, although it's wrong and he shouldn't be. It's argument whether he should or shouldn't be. But in comparison to everything else, he shouldn't be from what we've seen this season. But now I wouldn't play him, even if we got him out of it. I honestly wouldn't play him on Saturday, because we saw. I know it was a different reason, but we saw him come back for Liverpool after 1 day of training, 2 day of training, and probably it was one of his worst games at Anfield. Now, no one played well really, but I personally, from my experience from watching Arteta, he is far better when he's not very good, Arteta. He is good, but he's not very good when those moments happen during games or before games. For example, the West Ham game where the injury happened to Tierney and he had to change it quickly, and we had a really bad performance. You had the injuries at Man City, Mari and Mustafi, and he had to change it on the spot. And it looks like Arteta goes with a format and trains for it all week, and he's been training without Tierney. Or obviously some of the players aren't there, but Gabriel is there, isn't he? And Luis is there, So I personally now, for safety measures and everything, even if we somehow got the clearance, I probably wouldn't start him for those reasons. One, it could the backlash would hit us, and two, I think he's probably for the last week has been thinking of a game without Kieran Tierney, and we don't want that. But I think that's better for our ultimate outcome, and we'll get to the team in a second on what we think. Handling of we'll move off the COVID stuff, because it is quite depressing, isn't it? And I just hope it doesn't blow up in football's face. I think we're going to see more and more positive tests over the next couple of days, and I think there's going to be points where we're going to be playing a lot of youngsters in a Premier League game at some point, and all this sort of stuff. I just can't see it not happening, and hopefully it doesn't get to the point where football has to truly shut down again. Because I for a lot of us, I'm sure it's something that's keeping us quite sane at the moment with everything else that's going on. But handling of William Saliba, Michael, I've got a little. But I'm a little concerned about it, to be honest. For all the talk of how well the club's done, I'm a little concerned about it. What's your thoughts on it?
I mean, what's the latest that he's going to stick around? Yeah,
exactly. He's not going to be loaned to a Championship club. Yeah.
Well, it's a shame, because with all what's happened, it means he's not been included in the Europa League squad, which would have been vital would have been ideal with the teams that we, the level of teams that we're playing against. It's funny, I saw a video of Mustafi, up to doing some pranks at the training ground today, and Saliba was walking through the door, and he jumped out of the door, and he scared the crap out of him. And it's like, oh, that's nice, trying to injure him, injure him again. And David Luiz was behind him, and they were all laughing and joking. So whether it was something just to try and make him feel, part of the team and everything again, it's frustrating, because obviously the deal broke down for him to go back to Saint Etienne. But it's just, we talk about how things have progressed and how we've done really well in negotiations with transfers and what have you. But yeah, I think we've dropped the ball there, because we've spent a lot of money on him. 27 million? And, there's this, he needs this transitional season still and what have you. And the deadline for, EFL deadline for negotiations is Friday still, so who knows, something could happen. But if I take a saying he's going to stick around, then maybe he's seen maybe something in training, and it's going to be a long season. And as you said, with all the coronavirus going on and players dropping out, he might need to feature on the bench in the next coming games, and then he'll get 20 minutes, and then we'll see how it goes. But just a shame that the way it's worked out for the kids, and and again, a shame that we couldn't put him in the Europa League squad, because again, that would have been ideal for him to have a couple of some of the matches, obviously, which are coming up rapidly. But January's 11 weeks away, so who knows? In terms of him and the other players that we couldn't get out, get off the books, it's not that far away for us to maybe start seeing some people leave the door. But for him, it's a shame, because we've been waiting so long for him. And in a way, I'm glad that he's staying with the club and with the players. But just would have been great to see him play in some Europa League games.
Yeah, I think when you're not seeing him being put in squads when Mustafi, Mari and Chambers are unfit or injured, if he's not getting in squads now, he's not getting in squads, is he? So maybe we are we're going to have to wait it out until January, because if he's not been put in the Europa League squad, there's a chance he doesn't get put in the Premier League squad, and then he's just not playing. He's playing. What is he doing? Playing under 23 games until January, and that does feel a bit wasteful when he's fit, he doesn't have any injuries. We're trying to integrate him into the club. We must hopefully have a belief that this player has the potential to be really good, and it just doesn't feel very a good start to his Arsenal career. And you worry about the sort of mental health as well of the player at that point, coming from playing most weeks and being a huge part of a League One squad, to them being here with more centre-backs on the book than you ever see in your lifetime. I
did read somewhere that I think because he's the Premier League, I think if he counts as a homegrown player for the Premier League, which is strange, but he doesn't for the Europa League because even though he didn't play with us last year, he was registered under our player, and then we loaned him out. So technically, he served. He sort of, this is his second season. So if you've registered as a second season, he falls under being a homegrown player or something like that. So I think he falls into that. So he could play Premier League games
without being in the squad, effectively. Is that right?
He wouldn't. Because he wouldn't need to be registered as a non-homegrown player. And that's the key thing. That's why it's likely. Friday. We haven't spoken about that yet. The big bombshell. Ozil's cut from the Premier League squad. I hope you're ready for Twitter on that day.
I'm ready for it.
You got Socrates. It looks like Socrates is going to be cut from it as well. So if that drops, Saliba, I believe, someone probably correct me, that he can still feature because he falls under being a homegrown player because he's been registered under the club for 2 seasons. But yeah, we'll see.
I didn't know that, so that's interesting. Again, though, it would be. Is he going to feature in the Premier League if he's not going to feature in the Europa League? I feel like we dropped the ball in terms of not putting him in somehow to that Europa League squad. Those would have been the games you would have expected to see someone like Saliba. You would have thought anyway. But the omission of Ozil and Socrates, as Mike just alluded to, Neil, was no surprise for me. Obviously, it was a big uproar on Twitter, but I think we all sort of mentioned it briefly and kind of called it that those were probably the obvious two to leave out. Concerns for the morale of the squad, Neil, knowing that Mesut Ozil's obviously lots of stuff's gone on in terms of, offering to pay Gunnosaurus his 30 grand a year wages and then, the 8 million loyalty bonus that came out yesterday, which I personally think, or the other day, which I personally think was a push to say that we're not playing him because of finances. What's your thoughts on that, Neil, in terms of not playing him? There's arguments that he gets so many bonuses that, we're not playing him for financial reasons rather than footballing reasons. I hold a little bit more respect for Mikel Arteta in that sense, but what do you think? Do you think that could be a reason that Ozil is just not going to be included in either squad?
Possibly. I don't know. I think Arteta is too much of a clever man. I seriously believe that his vision does not encompass the style of Ozil in his vision. I just don't believe it does. I know there are a lot of fans out there who think that he should be included. He would greatly enhance the team because of his talent and raw skills. But I just think Arteta, if that was the case, Arteta at some point would have included him in some form of play in one of the games that. We've had so many different types of competitions and friendlies, and he's been included in nothing, absolutely nothing. We were even thinking he may play in the League Cup game. Do you remember with Guendouzi? Nothing, not even on the bench. So for me, Arteta probably just does not see him as part of his future, as part of the vision that he is instilling in the club, and that's it. I would like to think that's it. And it should, for me, a player and a club should always put footballing reasons in front of financial ones. If you're financially stable, and I'm sorry, Arsenal surely has got to be financially stable. We've always managed that, if nothing else, very, very well. And I don't believe that we're a club in financial strife. So if that's the case, it should always be footballing reasons first. So that just leads me to believe that that's the only reason for his exclusion. And I'm happy with it because I'm put all my faith in Arteta. I think he's driving us in the right direction, and he probably doesn't want to veer away from that by making certain people happy or, obliging other commitments, whatever they may be, financial or otherwise. He's just got a game plan in his mind, and he's narrow-minded in that respect. And he's going for it. And if that means certain marquee players excluded, no matter what the name on the back of their shirt, that's what it's going to take.
Yeah, the only concern there is, people might say, well, why did he use him pre-lockdown so much? But I do think there probably was something that happened during the lockdown, whether it was the pay cut, whether it was something else that made Arteta rethink things. But I also think he looked at the post-lockdown fixture list and realised he had to change something. And once you change the system, you just can't include Ozil in that system. There's no way he fits in. Do you know what I mean? So the unfortunate thing here is, obviously, he's going to be with us for the next 9 to 10 months unless something dramatic happens, right? We've heard today Saudi Arabia offered him ludicrous money. I personally not really have the belief that he cares about playing football too much anymore, but we also know that he doesn't really have a care about sort of calling out the club willy-nilly, right? I mean, the Gunnosaurus thing was all PR, wasn't it? It was all PR, and you know, you could do that behind closed doors and not mention it if you really wanted to pay someone's wages, right? It's a selfless good deed right there if you really want to do it. And that wasn't it, you know. And the concern I have is those things will just keep happening throughout the season, especially if he's not included in squads, right? He'll post things every Friday saying can't wait for tomorrow's game, even though he knows full well he's not even in the squad, right? He's not even listed in the 25-man squad.
He did that with his social media with Guendouzi, didn't he? Saying that little exchange they had and that little club they formed with who was it, Socrates and Kolasinac. It was almost like a little mutiny going on there, which it's not.
Yeah,
it's not great. I
don't know if you saw some of the Instagram stories. He looked like he bought every player a pair of shoes yesterday. Did you see some of that? So all the players, Willian, Aubameyang, they're all thanking Ozil because he's bought them. So what's going to happen once he's out of the squad? He's going to be buying them Rolexes every week, and you know, and everyone's going to thank Mesut Ozil. And the concern I have there is, what's his pull in the squad? Do people just kind of see him as let's all get on with Mesut Ozil, but we understand he shouldn't be part of the group, or does he still have that influence in the squad? I get the feeling from the way people look to Arteta now, Arteta has the bigger pull, and I think maybe Arteta knew that, and that was the transition as well. You couldn't do it right away because you don't have the trust of the group yet. Now you have the trust of the group, you can make the big calls.
I just wanted to say about I hate talking on Ozil. I really do.
I know we always do it, don't we? It's terrible.
But I think Arteta's got loads of currency because of what he did in after the restart, and that's by actually winning a trophy. Ozil was nowhere to be seen, and he won a trophy. Guendouzi was nowhere to be seen, and he won a trophy without these two. So whatever exchanges they want to put across each other and say whatever, and whatever shoes he wants to buy people, you know what? Hey, look, I got a cup winners medal. Where's your one? You know, that's all you got to say to people, and you know, you just got to look. We're moved on. We've got Partey now. You know, people, if they're wavering about, Ozil's not in the scene, when they see this guy, they're not going to worry about him anymore because we're moved on. We've got a different project. We're going in a different direction now. Maybe Ozil can't meet the demands of what Arteta wants to do, and I do think, like you said, Jack, I think it has got something else to do with something that we're not privy to, but you know, just. You know, this guy, let him count his money and do whatever he wants to do. Let's just get behind, you know, the team and Arteta and get wins and move up the table and do what we've got to do. You know, just keep talking about this guy. We've got 9 months to go of this, and that's it. We'll have another party when that happens.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. But we don't win that final. We don't win those games leading to the final with him in the team. I just don't believe it. Not the way we had to set up. Not with the squad that we had. Not with the type of teams that we were playing against. I don't think we get to the final with it, to be honest, with him in the team, and that I really do believe that this is a different side to what Arsene Wenger had when he won cup finals. Completely different way we have to play, and we're in a different moment. And no one gave us a chance going into it wasn't Hull and Villa in the final. No one gave us a chance going into these. So,
Jack, one thing I'll just say quick is 2 seasons before, obviously he's been dropped. We got to a semi-final of Europa League. Where was he then? And then we got to a Europa League final and he got subbed off. And when he got subbed off, he critiqued the manager and everything else. And do you remember when Lucas Torreira went off and he was crying? Mikel Arteta has changed the mentality to a winning mentality now. And all them know that they, you know, I know he quotes this non-negotiables and everyone's like, it's like his new catchphrase, like Wenger's I didn't see it. Maybe it is his buzzword and his catchphrase, but it's what rings true. It's non-negotiables now. I'm sorry, Mesut Ozil, if there are people that listen to this that are fans of him, none of us are saying anything nasty because we hate the person personally. But if it is financial and it is footballing reasons as well, and I'll tell you why it's footballing reasons, because Mesut Ozil is a luxury player. And at the moment, he is a luxury player that this team cannot afford to have. Martinez's money from that transfer, people go, oh, that was probably no, that was used because we're struggling for match day revenue to pay players, and that Martinez money is being used to pay for this guy's contract. That's what selling Martinez is paying. It's not to strengthen this club and get this club going even further forward, because we had to use other money for that. But selling Martinez is to pay this guy's big wage. And okay, I don't discredit him. If it was me, I'm staying there forever. No, you idiots gave me it. And I've said that on not just this podcast. I've said that in other podcasts. And I'd do that in my own job because you were stupid enough to give me it in the first place. So I don't begrudge him doing that at all. What I do begrudge is all these little, like you said, they were like two little school kids. Remember when you were at school and they sent one out and then he just ran by the window and poke his head through and go, Ugh. Like, it was childish. It was so childish. I'm like, mate, you go to Germany, because Guendouzi said in an interview this week, I've been told the door's not shut for me. I'm like, well, it is if you carry on being a dick. Why don't you go to Germany and show some of the good little bits of play that you showed when you first come into Arsenal, when you were winning points for Arsenal? Remember that Aston Villa game? All of us sat there and went, Guendouzi, what a player. He's done really well there. And then he just dipped and dipped and dipped. Why don't you go to Germany, where they're a bit more disciplinarian than England are, and they ain't going to take half your shit that you pull over here? And why don't you prove yourself and come back and be a better player? But no, you want to be an idiot. You want to be an idiot on Twitter and everything else like that. I'm sorry, but we got, like I said earlier, we're on a trajectory that's going that way. And if these people, if you ain't going to get on board, get out. And I'm sorry, but them two are the first two that I'd say they're not on it. Yeah. And they're not in it. So, sorry, but people got to go.
And you've got to remember that, even Freddie Ljungberg, he had 5 games in charge and he removed Ozil from the team in the final one.
Because 3 managers have gone, nah.
Yeah, he said,
for me.
And Ljungberg is a pretty calm, collected, doesn't lose his temper. I know he has done on the pitch, but as a manager or an assistant manager, never struck you as that kind of person. And he lost it with Ozil. If you remember his interview, I think his last game was against Everton at Goodison Park, and he didn't play, played the kids. And he said, there's no way Ozil was making my score today, not after what he did in the last game.
Yeah, he booted the bottle.
Yeah,
that's West Ham. Yeah. Was it? No, it wasn't West Ham.
Yeah.
Was it that he booted the bottle?
I can't remember. He got subbed off though, didn't he?
Yeah.
He threw his gloves off. He took his gloves off, innit?
So 5 games in, someone's sick of him. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not. This isn't just an Arteta moment, and so they can't say it's not completely football related. But I want to move on. But Mike, go on. Did you have something to say, Mike?
Was when he threw his gloves off. But like James is saying, we've got a problem with Ozil, the person. Obviously he sees the amount of things he does for charity, and all the brilliant things he does for charity for kids and underprivileged kids and everything. And obviously the situation he went through with his wife, who it turns out was probably pregnant at the time when that sort of robbery attempt happened. So all of that, got no issues with that with him at all. It's just, this is football. This is talk about football and stuff like that. We haven't got any problems with the guy as a human being. But yeah, it's we all know what he's doing, and whether people want to say the club are in the bad, they're trying to get him out, and whether he is, it's just what do we always say? No one's bigger than the club. That's what we always say, right?
Yeah, and it shouldn't be any different this way. The problem is it's built a cult following, etc. But I don't really regard those fans as true fans, to be honest. I just find it a little bit strange when I see that kind of stuff. But let's move on to the City game. We've done the Tierney, done the obviously the Saliba stuff, and we'll see what happens with that come Friday. It doesn't look like we're getting anyone in from the Championship. There was rumours, weren't there, goalkeeper, etc. But looks like our squad is settled and quite large, to be honest, but and there's going to have to be 1 or 2 seniors that are just not part of the team until January. But the Neil City game coming up, whether we like it, I know we've beaten a lot of big teams in recent sort of weeks, but if you were to argue it, there's still could be an argument that there's this block when it comes to away big games, right? We've not, even under Arteta, we've not really broken that hoodoo, have we, of winning a big away game. We've beaten them at neutral venues, but we know Wembley's different for Arsenal. And we've seen, even under Arteta, maybe the limitations, obviously, went to White Hart Lane last season, towards the end, lost there late on. At Anfield, we were disappointing. I know we could have snuck something, but we didn't really deserve it, if we're all honest. So I want to know what your thoughts are, Neil, on how we set up. If you compare it to the Liverpool game, we all felt we were too negative. So how do we change that?
I think we go for it. I really do believe we go for it. I think City are still not quite there as they were maybe a couple of seasons ago, maybe even last season. I think they're probably at their most vulnerable that they've been for a while. They've had some up and down results, so they're not showing the consistency that we're used to seeing with them. So I think this is a great chance for us to show everyone what we're made of and what we can do. And with that, for me, players like Willian was disappointing against Liverpool. This is a kind of similar game. So I think I would blood Pepe from the start, for example, start him in that game. I think he would be a better choice for that type of game. I would throw Partey in. I really would. I don't know what his fitness levels are, but he played international, for Ghana, and apparently he was good. He'd done some amazing pass in that game, and I just think that we need to blood him. I really think this is the kind of game that he needs to start. And if he's there, sitting there, protecting the defence, then Ceballos can maybe move forward and play that more creative role. And by doing that, assist the forwards, Pepe, Aubameyang, I don't know, who would we have playing on the left, maybe Saka. Maybe we can try him up there. If we're not going to go for Tierney, and I agree with you, I don't think we should, because obviously Arteta's been planning to play without him. Maybe we have Luiz in the middle. I would put Niles left back or in that position. And I would obviously play Bellerin because he's been playing really better and more recently. He seems to have got stronger. So I would play a very attacking, go for a positive type of attitude. But at the same time, now that we've got Partey, we can have that extra solidity in the back as well. I think it will be all right. I actually think we're going to do all right there, because I think Partey's going to be so up for this, and I think Arteta's going to be up for it as well. And like you said, we haven't done well away. I do believe Liverpool were the better team when we lost to them. However, we did have a couple of bad decisions go against us. And if I'm seriously saying to you, if Mane had got sent off as he should have done, it would have been a different outcome, for sure. And I think Arteta's also learned a lot from that game. And he can do a number with Pep. Let me assure you, he can. So I'm positive. I think we should be positive, and I think Partey's going to make a massive difference. But the big change would be Willian out, not starting, and Pepe starting for me.
Yeah, I agree with that one for sure. I mean, we all argued it for the Liverpool game, and obviously we saw Pepe sort of come back into the fore and really have a good cameo appearance against Sheffield United. So he's put himself into the forefront. I don't know how he's done for the Ivory Coast, and Willian, I don't think was away on international duty. I might be wrong. So obviously he's been with the squad. So I don't know whether that plays into it in terms of how late does Pepe come back in. A lot of the players aren't coming back until Thursday. But like you, I really hope that we aren't so passive, James. We can't be. So when we obviously, I think Arteta will be up for it, but Pep Guardiola is really going to be up for it too. He doesn't want his, apprentice, if you like. He's going to remember that from Wembley, and he's going to be up for this game more than probably any game he's going to be this season. And I have worries about that as well, especially as it's an away game for us, and I think we have a little bit of a mental block going into away games that we need to get over. It's just been too long under too many managers. We failed in away big games to not think the group has that. So we do need to change something. Would you do what Neil said, James? Obviously go more positive, but would you do anything more drastic in such of changing the formation and things like that?
So it's really difficult, because from the last game, there are so many positives that I saw from that last game that go into this one. And that's the fact that Aubameyang was deployed down the middle. It was a back four, And also, Willian looked brilliant when he was playing as a number 10. So there's so many factors and ways of how you can look at it. But I 100% agree with Neil. And what I will also say is just before the international break, that game that they played versus Leeds was absolutely fascinating. It was one of the best. I mean, I normally only just watch the Arsenal games, but you know what? I thought, I've got to chuck this one on. I've got to watch this one just because I'm fascinated. And Leeds, compared to how we go, they just don't budge. The manager's a nutcase anyway. The manager is an absolute nutcase, but they do not budge. And there were times where they got on 1v1 and they had 5 and City had 3. And I'm like, we need to get 5v3. And they were in on Ederson, and Ederson made some bloody brilliant saves. But the finishing from Leeds weren't up to top tit. And I'm like, if that's, Lacazette, look at the ones that he had against Alisson at Liverpool. I'm like, if he's playing, you got to notch him at this game. You can't do what you did. And I'm like, Pep Guardiola's freely admitted, if you get 1v1 versus my team, they're not very good. They don't like it. He's openly come out straight after Leon. He said, yeah, they looked at me and my players 1v1 and they knew we couldn't handle it. And he said it again against Leeds. And I'm like, there you go. I'm like, Arteta, he's giving it away. He's giving it away. Go one, put him in races. Put him in race. And De Bruyne, I think he's going to play. I'm like, that's tactical that he got injured and missed this Belgian game.
They said he's fit. Fit.
I'm like, he's playing. And I'm like, Aguero's going to play as well. Yeah. Aguero's always damages Arsenal. But no, I personally would do the 5 at the back. I'm not sure if I would go Saka or not because we need the overlapper. And I don't think Niles is as good as it as Tierney can be, because we won't have it from the centre back because Tierney normally does it and then Niles tucks in. So it's really that's difficult. But for me, like Neil said, Partey goes straight in, and for me, you either put him at the base in front of the back 5, or you put him next to Xhaka and then you play a number 10. Because but it's difficult because I don't see him ever dropping Xhaka. So and I don't really rate Ceballos as
though he did in the last game. He didn't start against Sheffield United, did he?
No. But
I think he was subbed early in the game before that. So there's been a hint at maybe a transition there.
I can't see him.
I agree. I'd be surprised with it. I think the back 4, I don't know what you think, Mike. I think the back 4 is probably ruled out from Tierney's absence. If Tierney was fit, we can consider a back 4 because he's a natural left back, but we really don't have another one. Kalashnak isn't one, and Saka and Niles aren't really. They are wing backs, but probably better in other positions. And I agree with James. I think the Niles Saka one, I'm very 50-50 on it. I mean, I love to see Saka there because it's more advanced and progressive, and we need outlets. Against City at Wembley, we had great outlets when we did get the ball. Even if we only had the ball 28% of the time, we had really good outlets. Where do you think we can? Where we can really hurt them in this game, because we know they're going to dominate the ball. But we need to be able to progress the ball fast. So do you think we could see a start for the likes of Partey and Pepe to really hurt them on the break?
For me, I would start Partey. I would start him at the base to start off with, and obviously he's got the ability to pop anywhere in that midfield. But to make it easier and to understand, just for him to settle in a little bit easier, just make the job really straightforward for him. Just sit there, just tidy up, just pick things up, just break things up, stick around Sterling and De Bruyne, who like to drop off and do little things like that. Let Gabriel pick up Aguero or whatever. And because if you see his performance, Partey's performance against Liverpool in the Champions League, I was actually watching it on YouTube, and there's about a 5-minute compilation BT have done, and he's sitting in front of the defence. He's not doing anything else. He's just sitting in front of the defence, and the amount of interceptions and the passes, and he was just there. He was just there all the time, and I was just thinking, just do that against City, and we've got the option now. Pepe, I would play him because I think you get in behind City now. They're not the same City as before, as they have been. I think Pep's off for this season. I think he's had enough. I think he's gone.
When's his contract done?
I'm not sure, but I think he's gone. I think he's gone, mate. I think you can see it in his eyes. You can see in his eyes that he's had enough. He's gonna go at the end of the season. But I think, you can see they're not doing the same things before. There's a drop off, and it happens with all the teams that you drill all the time. It happened at Barcelona where it dropped off. It happened at Bayern Munich where it dropped off. With Klopp, with Dortmund, what he did, he drilled them for 2 years. They won the league for 2 years, and then they dropped off. He almost got them relegated. These players can't keep doing the same things over and over and over again. But the key thing for Saturday is the mentality. The mentality's right, and the positivity is there. Like it wasn't. It's got to be the reverse of Liverpool. We've got to go there knowing that we can hurt them, and if we do that, then I think we'll get chances. We'll definitely get chances. But like James said, we've got to be clinical, absolutely clinical. So for me, Partey would definitely start, just for the presence and just what it gives to everybody there, and Pepe as well. After his cameo, I would absolutely play him so he gets in behind them and can hurt them and stretch them.
Yeah, I think obviously we won't be surprised if we don't see Partey just come into the club at first few training sessions. It won't be a surprise to see Xhaka and Ceballos there. But I like El Neni, but we went safe. We went with El Neni rather than Ceballos, and I think Willian is a bit safer on the right than Pepe. And personally, I want to see. We need more progression there. But what will be really interesting is the Aubameyang move, right? Because he's in a bit of a rut in terms of goal scoring. I don't think we're worried as such at the moment, but we saw him deployed centrally, and you wonder about the 3-year plan. What is the 3-year plan for Aubameyang? Do you want a 34-year-old on your wing? With the amount of work rate Arteta requires in this system from the wing, we almost take it for granted how fit Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang is, but to utilise him, and I've been very for him playing on the left side, but as he ages, as all these top strikers age, you don't see that often. You really don't, and there's just an argument when we're so isolated in games like this. You want him at the top end of the pitch. We saw at Liverpool, he had 25 touches of the ball when he was anonymous, other than the last minute when he probably should have scored, but laid it off to Eddie Nketiah, right? So I think we're talking Niall, Saka. I would like to see them both down that left side, to be honest, and move Aubameyang central and have Pepe on the right. And the only issue there is, who's your drop-in player? Who's your player in a 3-5-2 that sinks in and sits like Lacazette? And I think the only way we play that front three is if Partey starts, because from everything I've seen from Partey, he just has far more ball progression than any midfielder we've had for some time, and his ability to literally transition just from running with the ball is ludicrous in comparison to what we've had. So I would really like to see Partey, Ceballos, Saka, Pepe, Aubameyang, and try to hit them into the one-on-ones, like you said, because that's pretty much how we hurt them and beat them 2-0 in the. We got Aubameyang one-on-one down the right. That second goal. That was it. We just isolated them and got them one-on-one, and I think we need to do that more. So it'll be really interesting. Before we go, let's do. And Ash said, sorry, Ash, you said, what is your starting line? We just gone through it. I was supposed to mention your question before. At Ash_Gallagher, top man. Ash keeps getting in some good questions. What is your starting 11 for the City game? Does Partey immediately start? We all agree Partey immediately starts. He says City are in average form. Let's not sit back and defend like we did against Liverpool. He says, press up Orba, Laka, Pepe. I would be for that too. Orba, Laka, Pepe. I'd have no problem with that front three either. I'm just curious, the long term, when does the long term plan for Aubameyang come out? Is it continue as normal and he's always being deployed on the left? I'm starting to think it might not be with the players we've bought.
When Neil's man comes back from the gym, he will go to the left and Aubameyang will move down the middle.
Yeah. Quite possibly. That's might be when we have a back.
When Martinelli is back, he will be on the left-hand side, because still ain't signed that deal. He's got 2 years left. Do you know what I mean? I've got a funny feeling this is probably going to be Lacazette's last season. And for as much as I like Eddie Nketiah, I think Eddie Nketiah would probably go, I don't mind being number 2 to a Aubameyang who's 32, 33, playing down the middle. But yeah, Neil's man's going on the left when he's back. Trust me.
Yeah.
That's when you talk about when the plan's going to change. That is when, after Christmas, or it wouldn't surprise me if he's back before, because that kid looks superhuman.
It'd be interesting.
He's one of them.
The only thing I'd say there,
freak athletes, mate.
I do love Martinelli, and I think Arteta does too, but he wasn't deploying him very much pre-injury, which was a bit of a... Do you remember? He wasn't deploying him that much pre-injury, and we made the argument that Martinelli and Aubameyang in the same team might be the issue. So I wonder, but again, his plans have changed for a lot of players. And
who negotiated his contract though, Jack? You see, it was Arteta and Edu, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So he's got plans for him. Trust me, he's got plans for him.
But just,
he's getting big plans.
I think we could move sooner, to be honest. I think we could once Partey settled. I think you could see it, and Tierney's obviously back regularly. I think this back four, I think we're starting to see it. And I know we're saying Luis, the concern always is Luis in the back four. He doesn't play well in the back four. Chelsea didn't play well in the back four. But I'm not sure Chelsea had the likes of Gabriel and Tierney beside him, to be honest, ever, when Luis was there. I mean, these are, I think these are potentially world-class players that we've got here. And they can protect him a little bit more in that format, and then the likes of Partey ahead of him. So if you're ever going to play Luis in a back four, it's probably now. Do you know what I mean? It's probably now with these players that we've got around him. Let's do predictions before we go, and then I'll just mention the YouTube account and the Saturday hopeful live stream, and how we're going to do that. Hopefully, Neil, City away. I think it's 5:30. We're planning to be live on YouTube at 7:30. I haven't told my wife yet, so I'm just going to walk into the office and see if she realises. But Neil, what? Predictions, mate. We need a big result in a big game away from home. We really do.
4-2.
4-2. 4-2. Okay, first goal.
Aubameyang. 4-2.
Yeah, need a goal from Aubameyang. Yeah, it's been a long time, mate. What a big away win. All right, long time. James.
2-2. Nicolas Pepe.
Went with my score there. Okay, Mike, what about you?
2-1 Arsenal, Aubameyang. I think we'll nick it. 2-1
Aubameyang. I'll go 1-1 Pepe. I'll go 1-1 Pepe.
In a few weeks' time, we'll come back on this when it's a draw. We'll come back and go, bloody hell, that was a brilliant point in that against them.
Right.
These next games,
yeah, they're mental. Yeah.
I said these next 3 games, 7 points. And we're going to get the 7 points. So we're going to draw this one, going to beat Leicester, and we're actually going to go to Old Trafford and we're going to fucking win at Old Trafford.
Not talking ahead,
we're going to do
but
it.
I wouldn't mind Ole Gunnar Solskjaer still. I don't think he will be, but I wouldn't mind him still being there.
No,
at that
point.
We're
going to get these 7 points out of these next 3. Trust me.
Yeah. Take it into a bracket. Yeah, it's a big game. It's a really big game. We're on YouTube. We haven't got our own URL yet because you've got to subscribe to us on YouTube. So even if you listen, we got like 1,400 listens on the last pod, but they're all on the podcast apps. Get on and have a look at our faces for 1 second, subscribe, and then go back and listen on your podcast app, and then we're fine. But if you subscribe to us, it's way easier for us to give you the link to constantly sort of access us for the live streams. Like the live stream on Saturday, if it works out, it's only on YouTube, right? I mean, it will go onto the podcast apps, but not for a day or two. So if you want to listen to in-game analysis, which we don't get a lot of overseas, and I know you boys are going to have to be paying top dollar for it now with all the 15 quid. It's like a boxing match, which is unbelievable, but we'll get to that. But yeah, so subscribe to us on YouTube. That helps us out with the URL a little bit, and the YouTube account, and you're aware of when the pods come out first, because they always come out on YouTube first now. They come out on the podcast apps a little bit later because Anthony, needs time to edit it and make our sound at least respectable. But anything else?
Just one thing. I think we're going to surprise ourselves. I think we're going to see a lot more of Saliba than you think. Just wait.
Of Saliba.
Yeah,
you think?
I reckon that partnership with Gabriel is going to form a lot sooner than you think. Well, especially now with Partey there. I think those 3. Oh my good God.
what we want to hear, I
Just
want to hear from Arteta, and I don't know, he can't say it if he doesn't believe it, but it's like an Eddie Nketiah moment where he kind of says, well, he's been an unbelievable. The reason we kept him is because he's been unbelievable in training the last few weeks, and you know what I mean. And I think that would give the player some confidence and positivity, and that would give, you know, and make us as fans feel like, okay, you know, he's just taking time to settle, etc. We've not heard anything like that yet.
I'm not concerned about him being excluded from the Europa squad. It's a shame, but I think he's going to feature in the Premiership a lot more than we think. I really believe
Neil,
it.
You said we're competing on 4 fronts, mate. So we need this squad depth, don't we?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, if we need as many players as we can get, we're trying to go for 4 trophies.
Mate, of course we are. And the point is, the future is Partey, Saliba, and Gabriel.
Partey, Saliba. Well, I tell you, yeah, that's a young, youthful. He got all the attributes. So let's hope. I mean, Arteta's got a plan. I'm not worried about it. With under Arteta, he will find a way. It's like Jurassic Park.
He will.
Right, go.
Just wanted to say congrats to Eddie Nketiah.
Yes.
Obviously, he got the record, didn't he, yesterday? So well done on him. You know,
Under 21.
Beat Shearer's record to get in. You know, so he
James, man.
He's going to beat Shearer's other record as well. You just watch.
Yeah.
No, he's not.
Unfortunately, he's got Gareth Southgate there, who's going to play Harry Maguire up top for the Euros, and Harry Maguire up top with Jordan Henderson and
Mason Mount
in behind, and it's going to be hard to pick him from the sin bin and prison, mate. I don't know how he's going to get a game in prison, but yeah.
He hates Grealish, doesn't he? That's very strange. It's very strange. It's very Ian Wright. It's very Ian Wright, Graham Taylor moment. Do you know what I mean? It's very much that we're going. Ian Wright's the best finisher I've ever seen at Arsenal, and he can't get a kick for England. What's going on here? And it was like, well, it's Alan Shearer because he raises his arm really well when he said, "Oh, get out of here." Well, you know, good finisher, Alan Shearer, but I don't know. Ian Wright for me, I've never seen anyone better finishing. To be honest, with Arsenal, that's for sure. I mean, he's built another level, and both-footed as well. People forget of both-footed. Unbelievable, Ian Wright really was world-class finisher, very underrated, and he's always about the place. Did you notice yesterday? He's even there at the club. I bet he doesn't even call anyone. He just turns up at London Company, does his COVID.
He's got a key, mate. He's got a key.
He's got a key. Yeah. Well, boys, it's been great.
Perez has got a key.
Yeah, Perez has got a key as well. Yeah, exactly. Lumbo's still hanging about somewhere. Boys, it's been great. We'll be back Saturday, hopefully, post-game live. Subscribe to us, Purely Arsenal on YouTube, Purely Arsenal FP on Twitter if you want to interact with us and get your questions in. Thank you so much, boys. Up the Arsenal. Big one on Saturday.
3 points.